Hey, this is Nick from Agency Acquisitions, and I've helped 6 agencies scale above $10 million a year by doing this one thing. And guess what? It's not by growing their sales and marketing. Here's the thing. Sales and marketing has its place, especially when you're starting out. But once you get to a certain point, it no longer becomes about sales and marketing. It becomes about this thing. And it's really easy to get caught into the sales and marketing vortex. The problem is that it has diminishing returns, meaning like the more you do it, the less you're going to get out of it. And this is the thing that is going to enable you to grow from where you are today to a $10 million plus agency. Somewhere between 50K a month and 300K a month, you're going to hit this wall. And the wall is only overcome by retaining clients for a long time. So what I'm actually talking about is client retention slash client churn. This is the thing that if we solve for it, it's going to take us from where we are stuck from today to $10 million a year plus. So let's get into it. As a quick background, I've done a lot of agency audits over the years. And in the past 9 months alone, I've done 70 to 80 of these. Okay. And it's taught me a lot about client turnover and client churn. And at a very high level, there's a ton of misconceptions about this, but I assure you it is the number one thing to grow your business. So let's get into the list. The most important thing that you need to know is that great churn is less than 2% of clients dropping every single month. Most large agencies actually have a churn rate that's less than 1% per month. Okay. There are a couple of exceptions of amazing agencies that have this amazing sales and marketing engine. And they might have a little bit of a higher churn, maybe like 2-3%. But after that, retaining clients becomes the number one battle at all times to grow this really big company. And I'm going to show you a table of why. Very quickly, this is what happens when you have an agency that closes a specific amount of sales per month at an average price. The only thing that changes from all of this is the actual monthly churn rate. In this case, 12% all the way down to 2.5. Under the exact same conditions, just changing the client churns, like how many clients we churned on a per month basis, this is the difference between having 1.6 million in annual revenue versus almost 7.7 million. And if you cut two and a half in half to 1.25, this number would double again. How this actually works is that when you have 12% churn and you go down to 6, your business doubles. So every time you cut this in half, your business doubles. And this is why at a certain point in your agency journey, the number one battle from this point forward is going to be all about retaining clients for as long as possible, keeping that churn nice and low. And the agencies that manage to figure that out will inevitably grow to 7, 8, 10 million, 20 million plus over time, as long as they can keep this in check, because this is what we have to keep top of mind at all times. Now, what's the number two thing? Well, it's all about agencies are only as good as their weakest service. Client retention is usually about doing less, but better. I want to kind of get into this. Imagine you have an agency with 5 different services. How long you retain a client is going to be based on how good your services are. And if you have a weak link service where the client is constantly getting mad at the delivery or they're underwhelmed with what you're delivering because it's not as good as the general marketplace, they're going to judge you on that rather than your winners. There's not very many clients that actually have the presence of mind to tell you, hey, like you're delivering these like 3 or 4 services for me. This one is the lowest performing. Let's stop this one. I'm going to give this service to another agency. They're probably just going to drop your entire agency, even for the stuff that you do really well. So to prevent that, we need to focus on the things that we do well. By the way, this is where white labeling certain services can really blow up in your face. Because if the person and team that you're white labeling their service under your banner, if it's not good enough, you're going to be judged on that. And when that judgment is accurate because it's not that good, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to drop you, but they're not just going to drop that service. They're going to drop everything else because people don't get upset at one service, they get upset with the team providing all of the services. So it's going to taint all the other services because one of them is not as good as the other. So one thing that I've noticed over and over is that when agencies remove those services that they've added over time that they're just plainly not that good at, client retention goes up every single time. So for homework, think about what you do on a day-to-day basis. What are you great at? That's the thing that you should be focusing on. And if you're great at three things, great, offer those three things. But if you're doing five things and are only great at three, you should be rethinking whether or not you should be doing those other two services and instead getting strategic partners to offer those other two services, right? You can get a referral fee on those accounts go for those services to another agency, but now the client is judging you on the work that you do best, which is going to enable you to retain them. Number three, once the service delivers on the sales promise and that promise is market competitive, being exceptional at that service matters a lot less than you think. Said otherwise, there are huge diminishing returns went on being better at a service than everybody else. Because once you're reasonably better than everybody else, getting double or triple as good at it just isn't going to render you that much more benefit in terms of client retention. There are a few exceptions here. So, for example, CRO, right? CRO is a service which is all about the conversion rate, right? So, conversion rate optimization. Being, a fraction of 1% at CRO can land you bigger and bigger and bigger progressive clients the better you are, that have higher amounts of media spend, that have higher amounts of traffic on their site. Therefore, every bit that you are better means more because of their traffic volume, right? So CRO is highly scalable based on who you can work with and what their traffic volume is to certain pages, right? But for most other things, the diminishing returns are really, really big because once you are a standout in the one service or couple services that you provide for maybe a certain industry, what is going to happen is that, once you're in the top, 5, 10%, you're not going to run into the other people that are of the same class all the time in proposals and things like that. So you're going to be winning like a very high percentage of those deals. Okay. Getting even better only matters if you're trying to move up market. And generally, moving up market isn't a scaling model. That's more about like a high profitability model. So you have to think to yourself, like, do I want to scale with very good profit, or am I going for like a very highly profitable low scale model? So just remember that focusing on the thing that you already do amazing, that you're better at than most other people, it's going to have this diminishing returns on the actual money you're going to get for being better at it, unless you're in some very specific niches of the type of service that you provide. Okay. And chances are, if you're listening to this, it's probably not you. Okay. If it is you, great. Like, ignore this piece of advice. But for 99% of people, this advice is really something you should really take to heart. And then you should focus on other things and improve those to actually improve your client retention. Number four, agencies that don't align their salespeople to long-term success via how they compensate them can never break out of low retention rates, right? Okay, so what happens? When we compensate our salespeople too strongly on the front end, meaning their whole commission comes from closing, right? They're going to close in a way where it actually damages churn in the long run. Because as long as the people sign on the dotted line, as long as we collect money, they're getting their commission. And now they don't have skin in the game, right? So there's two ways to approach this. Like, number one, you really put the salesperson in a box and tell them you can't say these things, you can't promise these things. And then you're going to have to review all of their sales calls to ensure that they're not doing that. So you can basically micromanage your way into making this system work by giving them the commission all up front. The better way to do this is that you give them skin in the game for selling in a way to retain the client. Okay. So you could do the same compensation structure, but just give them maybe 50% or 60% on initial close. And then 6 months later, they get the other half. Or you could break it down into thirds. So, like one third at the beginning, one third at 6 months, one third at 12 months. Okay. There's a lot of different models, and like you're already gonna say, like, but Nick, like they're not gonna make enough money every single month this way. It's like, well, over time they will. And what's going to happen when you try to like spread these commissions out, what you're inevitably going to have to do is give them like maybe a little bit of base pay if you're on a commission model only. If you are on a base plus commission only, this is actually a lot easier to do because they're already used to getting a little bit of money to sell in a specific way. Basically, we're giving them this little bit of base salary as a means to tell them, like, look, you don't need to like kill every single thing in your path, even if it's a wrong thing to actually close. You can take some passes here because we're paying you some little bit of base here, right? So you don't want to like starve them through like the restrictions that you're inevitably going to have to put in place for them in order to close more deals in a more long-term manner rather than a short-term manner. Okay. Number five, client retention starts at sales, and the way to maximize it most will probably not please your sales team and likely some internal people as well. So this is where I tell you, like, you can either have an easy life now, hard life later, or you can have a hard life now and an easy life later. It's really tempting to try to close deals only using salespeople, and it's not the right way to do it, right? And the reason that salespeople want to generally close deals by themselves is because they feel that other people, when they get involved, they're actually damaging the close rate because they're not saying the right things, they're not saying them in the right way, and it's not helping them achieve their goal of generating more commissions and hitting their close targets, right? On the other side, this is gonna displease some of your internal people because they're gonna have to get involved in the sales process, and we're gonna have to teach them and coach them a bit on how to do it. The internal staff members, the non-sales people, need to act as a consultant in the sales process. Okay. While the salesperson needs to be there to ensure that we are speaking in a way that makes sense to the client, because technical people with high levels of technical knowledge can go way too technical and lose the potential client in the sales process where that person doesn't understand what's going on anymore. So our job as salespeople is then to like really keep that internal technical person kind of on the path, making sure that the potential client actually understands what is being said. The right way to go about this is first meeting a salesperson only, second meeting is some sort of like deep dive or strategic audit with that internal technical person alongside of the salesperson. And the third meeting is a proposal meeting of some kind. This is just the best practice that I've always stuck to. We can go way deeper into this one in a different video, but like generally, you have to sell with not only the salesperson, but one internal strategist or expert to actually be able to close deals in a sustainable manner, right? Because we want to, through this audit, through the strategic audit in the second call, to anchor the client's thinking to middle to long term ways of thinking. That way, we can retain the client for a lot longer when they sign on the dotted line. It also helps us showcase our expertise, where if a competitor is only trying to win the deal with a salesperson, they're sort of at a disadvantage because they're not getting the benefit of this more technical and strategic data and information. So we should have a leg up on our closing rate as well by bringing in people that are actually doing the work that's strategy level individual. And this is why sometimes the salesperson's not going to like it. Again, people can get overly technical, and the technical person has to actually take time out of their day to attend sales calls, right? So neither party will really like it. It's a little bit of a harder life now, but easier life later because we're retaining clients for longer. We're mitigating our churn. Number six, main source of client turnover is generally misalignment between the departments inside of the agency itself. So a lot of people say, well, it's the client's fault. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. The number one reason we have low client retention, we have high client churn, bad churn, right? Is because our own teams are misaligned from the true goals of what we should be trying to do. If you've ever heard before when you were kind of doing a post-mortem, on why a client left. And you hear, oh, well, like this department did their job, but this other department didn't. We technically did everything right. They screwed up. And then you have this sort of scenario where everybody's pointing the finger at each other, basically saying, that's not my job or it's not my fault. You probably are running into this in some way, shape, or form. The right thing to do to correct this misalignment is to have one strategic objective from the delivery team that is around client retention, one objective that is around client results. And that way, everybody is playing this team sport of retaining clients for a long time and also getting clients the results, right? And then we're judging the team on a team basis around these two things, okay? And why that matters is that if somebody else drops the ball and I'm on a different team and technically the ball that they dropped, it doesn't belong to me, it's in my best interest to point that out and say like, hey, we've dropped this ball. Like, let's figure this out. Let's get the client great results and like, let's keep this client for a long time. It's not like, hey, I wash my hands of this. It's not my problem, right? Because if we put the retention of clients at the feet of everybody that's billable and the client results, what's going to happen is that everybody now has a vested interest in helping the client succeed. So we're going to go out of our way to do that. So winning has to be aligned with client retention, right? Number one. Number two, we're going to win together, right? We're either going to all win together or we're all going to lose together. There is no halfway on this. All right. So you have to align all of the departments that are delivering to the client to these two things: client retention, client results. Number seven, agencies that obsess over client insights have the longest retention. So they retain clients for the longest. And I want to set a very specific bar here. When I say that they obsess over client insights, what I actually mean is that they understand their customers, clients better than the actual customer. So if I'm the agency and I have a client, a business, I understand that business's consumer better than even they understand their own consumer. And that is the line. Okay. Why does this matter? When you, as the agency, understand the end consumer of the business that you serve better than the client, they cannot fire you. Because once they understand that you understand their client better than they do, all the insights belong to you. You're the bringer of the insights. You're not an order taker anymore. You're a strategic partner. And when that barrier is crossed, until they retake leadership of understanding their own customers better than you do, they have no choice but to keep you on payroll, keep you as that consultant and or that agency forever. Number eight, the most important non-delivery task for high retention rates is how much the agency actually trains their own staff. So like, let me explain. Think about like a professional sports team. Like for every hour of game they play, they're probably training somewhere in the vicinity of like 8 to 10 hours, maybe even more, right? But in a business, it's really weird that we train people like 2 days a year and then they're playing the game like 250 days. Like really, it's literally we're training people for less than 1% of the time, whereas professional athletes and like high functioning organizations train more than 50%. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to train your people like 89% of the time because, like, obviously business doesn't work that way. But here's the point: training your people for a day or two in total for the entire year is not an acceptable bar. The agencies that are retaining clients the longest generally are doing at least 1 hour per week of training for every single staff member. It might not all be all at once, meaning it might not just be a meeting with every single person in the company training on one thing. It might be departmentally. So, but each department and each department head has the responsibility to train their team for at least 1 hour. Some of it can be joint amongst teams or whole company training. That's fine. But that is the target: 1 hour per week. To get a little bit more granular on this one of the most important trainings that you can give any kind of staff is how to retain clients for longer. Meaning, what is important to the client? Like, how do we deliver our service? How do we connect that to client retention? What do our clients actually care about? What are the industries our clients are in, and to help them understand the industries better, understanding the economics of how our clients' businesses work so that we can adapt how we deliver to generate those results that the client is actually looking for. What we want to actually do is help our team think like our clients, okay? So that way that we have a high level of alignment and the results that we provide are felt a lot better by the client. Because if we're just trying to deliver the actual end product versus the result that that product actually generates, it's very different. And we're after the results, not after the actual work in of itself. So all about training, what it comes down to, the benchmark should be 1 hour per week forever. Okay. This never stops. Number nine, this is a common misconception. Generalist agencies means that your retention is going to be lower. I assure you, after auditing as many agencies as I have, looking under the hood of many more agencies than that, being a generalist agency that doesn't have a specific niche or a specific product, it doesn't mean your retention is going to be lower. Okay. Like, very common misconception. I've seen generalist agencies have sub 1% churn, be very big, et cetera, et cetera. However, I am going to tie this back to one of the first things that we covered about weak products. You can be a generalist agency as long as your products and services are really good. Because remember, if the client sees that one thing is too weak, they're going to judge you on that thing. It's going to taint the results of the other things that you're good at. And then the client's going to drop you a lot earlier than they otherwise would have. So again, there's a common misconception. You have to specialize to retain people for longer. You have to specialize for all these reasons. It's like you don't, but it is about the strength of your product and service, right? So being a generalist does not equal poor retention. Where am I at? Number 10, agencies with the highest retention think beyond the scope of their service and ensure that their service gets results no matter what. Agencies that have very good client retention not only understand what they themselves do, but they also understand the conditions of their clients and in what conditions their product thrives in. Okay. And so this is about connection points. What does the client already have equipped to them before they even approach us that generally means that we're going to do a really good job for them, right? What is it? What is our service connected to? Is it because they have a big email list? Is it because they have a certain amount of traffic? Is it because their brand is super congruent? Like, every product and service is a bit different. But what are those strengths that the clients have where we deliver amazing results? We need to reverse engineer that. Okay. And then we need to create some training and or documents, and we need to deliver this to the client. So when they sign on, we tell them, like, look, as you know, we're really good at this. For this to really shine, you need to do the following things, and you give them the list and or the training on the things that we don't do. You can even take this as far as actually going into the sales process and telling people, like, look, we work really well, and just so you're aware, our best clients all have this in common. So here's the list of things that you guys need to do. And we see it right now because maybe you even audit this and say, hey, these areas are a little bit weak. You guys need to work on this as we build out all the things that we're working on for you. So by the time we're done what we're doing, you have to have this homework complete so that we get amazing results for you. And then if the client is late on their homework, it buys us more time, because if the results are not what they're expecting, it's because they haven't done their actual homework, because we told them up front, you need to get these things done to have amazing results. So step one, reverse engineer in what conditions our product and service deliver amazing results. Step two, create the training on helping the client understand how to get those things done in a general level, because again, that's not the core of what we do. Step number three, get that involved even at the sales process so that they understand what their homework is going to be when they buy our services. Okay. Number 11, great client onboarding translates into higher retention rates almost every single time. And I'm really talking about the first 100 days. Why 100 days? 100 days is generally how long it takes to actually deliver, like, generate a habit. And the habit that we want to nurture with the client is the habit of trusting us. the habit of them knowing that we have their back and that we are thinking ahead of them every step in the way. And this is why I prescribe to the thinking of having onboarding that lasts 100 days, because now they have not only learned to trust us, but they've gotten in the habit of trusting us by having an onboarding experience that is beyond anything that they've had with any other agency. To get a little bit more granular on this, I actually split up training into onboarding training into like a couple different things when it comes to onboarding a client. Because, like, I'm not talking about onboarding our actual staff, I'm talking about client onboarding. I generally want a breakdown of interactions with the client that break down into about one third education, one third expectation settings, and one third client experience, right? So if I have anywhere between 40 to 50 contact points with the client, both written communication, videos, one to one meetings in the first 100 days, I want to make sure that I break down that one third, one third, one third between experience, expectations, and education. Okay. And that is going to create this habit. If we structure that in the right way, we're going to create that habit of trust where they trust us because we've thought of everything steps ahead of where they were at all times. Okay. Number 12, the more we educate our clients, the longer they'll stay. So remember, I just said in 11, it's all about education, experience, and expectation settings. Well, this is where the education comes in. We need to educate our client on many different things. For example, we need to educate them on the scope of our product. We need to educate them on how our product works at a high level so that they understand how it works. We need to educate the client on what good looks like. Because, for example, if we hit a certain target, that's amazing. If the client doesn't know it's amazing when we present it to them, they're going to be like, oh, that's nice, because they have no idea what's going on. So we have to educate them on what good actually looks like. We also have to educate them about what conditions they're responsible for, from like the point 2 points ago, about what are the things that they are responsible for, right? So there's a ton of education that goes into the client, especially in the first 100 days, but also beyond that. We need to educate clients on a consistent basis, right? And the more we educate the clients, the more they can feel the value of our services and the longer they're going to stay with us. Number 13, being a one service agency will help you grow really fast, but it's actually going to limit how long clients stay with you potentially. And there are some notable exceptions to this. So, like, look, if you're an organic social agency, this doesn't apply to you, right? Because there's many services underneath or being organic social, like community management, creative accounts, like all these other things, right? There are certain places where this is actually going to limit your growth, though, right? It will generate very quick growth, but here's the problem. When you sell a client this one service and that service doesn't work, right? You basically just have to like walk away at that point as the client, because it's like, hey, we tried this thing, it doesn't work. But if you're offering more than one thing, maybe the one thing didn't work, but the other one did. So the budget can just get shifted over to the service that did work, and the client continues on with you as an agency. However, if you don't have that second service or third service, what's going to inevitably happen is that the one thing didn't work. You throw the kitchen sink at it, did a couple iterations, still doesn't work. You're going to lose the client, right? When you have more than one service, you can shift the client over to that other service, maybe give it to them for free for like a month or two while you're trying to salvage the service that you did sell them, and this is going to enable longer retention rates from the client because you have that like door number two always available in your back pocket. 14, agencies that believe they have a client turnover problem actually have the lowest turnover and on average retain their clients 2 to 3 times longer. This goes back to something that I said at the very beginning of this video. The agencies that are constantly battling against client churn, that are constantly battling to make their clients last longer, right, are the ones that inevitably retain clients for longer because it's their sole focus. So once agencies have figured out that the eternal battle is going to be client churn, keeping clients for as long as possible, they're iterating their services and products and experience and insights in a way where it's all driven to generate client happiness, client retention. Once that becomes a focus, it's only natural that we shift there, which leads me actually to number 15, which is agencies who believe that they don't have a churn problem always believe they have a sales problem. And this is generally what catches most agencies. This is the most important point right here. Every agency that I've talked to that has trouble getting to 1 million per year, 2 million per year, 3 million per year, there's this place where people cap out. Some people cap out at 50K per month. Other people cap out at 250 or even 300K a month. Everybody hits a wall though somewhere in here where their sales system just no longer gets them more growth. And what happens is that the sales cost and the marketing cost goes up and up and up and up, and their people costs go up and up and up until it squeezes their margin and they're not making money anymore because their churn is so high. And they keep thinking that they have the sales problem, and they're still trying to fix the sales problem because now they've basically created this beast. And the beast is the people and the fixed costs and all of this stuff. They got to keep selling to like feed the beast, right? The only way to break out once you get to this point, and again, it can happen at as low as 50K, but it can also happen all the way delayed, all the way up to 300K a month in revenue. Eventually, you need to figure out that the number one problem that you need to solve for is client churn, is about keeping clients for as long as possible. And once you shift that way, this is what unlocks the growth to like 4, 5, $10 million a year. This is the number one thing that you need to worry about once you have an initial baseline of sales. And that baseline is a lot lower than you may think. There's agencies out here scaling year over year, 20, 30% plus year over year by closing through new business development less than 5 accounts per year. And that's a shocking number to a lot of people, but I assure you it's infinitely true. They get the majority of their upside in revenue from referrals, from upsells, and they actually have negative churn, meaning that for every client they lose, they upsell and or get a referral for more revenue than the clients that they lost. So all of this new biz dev is actually just incremental upside to them, right? Because they never shrink organically. So here's the takeaway. Low churn equals large agency. Long client retention, large agency. Again, this is why, right? Going from a 12% monthly churn, which I've had clients that have even hit 14% churn per month. We've taken those same clients down to 2% over time. They scale their agency very, very quickly. And you need to wrap your head around this table because I assure you it's infinitely true. It seems like magic. You double again, double again, double again. Every time you cut churn in half, it's how it actually works. So look, if you felt or identified any of these things that I've been talking about within this video, I have a few more trainings below that you can go check out, but also get in touch with me if you want to figure out how to solve your churn issues in your agency.